video I wanted to talk about neurons. And neurons are basically the main cell in your brain, and they are very important so that you can actually think. They conduct signals across your brain so that you can think. Yeah. So I'm going to draw one. It's probably not going to be a very good drawing, but if you want a better drawing, which you probably do, you can look one up. Yeah, but this is just for sort of teaching purposes. Okay, so I'm going to talk about what the neuron is, what it does, and how it works. All right. Okay. Okay, that's definitely not a good representation. You might want to look one up. But let's get started. Okay, so I'm going to start with naming the main parts of your neuron. So these are your dendrites, and they basically accept signals from other neurons, okay? And this is what is called your soma, and we're going to talk about it more later, but it is basically sort of your control center for your neuron. And this is your axon, and this is your terminal, okay? And your axon conducts signals across the actual neuron. And then once it's conducted across, your terminal will send that signal to another cell, to another neuron. And that's how you think. Now your axon has Schwann cells lining it, okay? And what Schwann cells do is they produce myelin sheaths, okay? And I'm going to tell you in a second why, but myelin sheaths help the axon conduct signals, okay? All right, so how do they help conduct signals? Well, let's draw your axon, except bigger now. Okay, and these are your myelin sheaths. Okay, and your axon is basically, it's a bit like a conductor, right? Instead of conducting electrons, it conducts charge that is created by positively charged ions. So positive ions will create a charge difference in the membrane that will create a charge that the axon will conduct, right? Okay, so these are the positively charged ions that it's going to conduct. Okay, so you might be wondering how the positive charged ions actually help create that charge difference. And the dendrites will accept positively charged ions, and that will initially start the charge, and then it will move along your axon. So why do you need your myelin sheaths? Well, those positive ions, or the charge that's created by the positive ions, it can lose energy. But myelin sheaths, they help prevent that. They decrease the amount of energy that you can lose because they're insulators. So insulators, basically, they stop the loss of heat, the loss of energy through heat, because they basically insulate and keep that energy in. Okay? Now you might be wondering why we don't have a big myelin sheath just covering the whole thing, instead of multiple of these, right? Well, the reason for that is actually, I'm just going to draw at these little areas where you don't have myelin sheath. Actually, I'll draw it out just so you know how to spell it. Myelin sheath. Oh, can't spell it if you don't know how to read. If you can't read it, right? Sheath. Myelin sheath. Myelin sheath. And this is your little area without the myelin sheath. And this area, so actually I'm just going to, okay, so this is the inside of your axon, let's say. So this right here is your inside of the axon, but this is the inside here. And then this is going to be your outside, all right? And this is your outside. I don't want you guys to get confused because the outside is on the bottom in this over here, but the outside's on the top over here, okay? Okay. Now, you have sodium-potassium pumps, okay? And some of these pumps are going to, so sodium and potassium. Sodium and potassium are atoms that can easily be turned into ions, and positive ions, okay? And basically, if you have your wall here, and you have some of these pumps, with the help of ATP, of course, ATP will allow these pumps to to move sodium and potassium in such a way that there's a positive side here and a negative side here, okay? All right. Now, why would you want this? Well, when your positive ions are going across your axon, they can still lose energy despite a myelin sheath, right? They'll still lose some energy. They won't lose as much as they would without the myelin sheath, but they'll still lose some energy. And your neurons really don't want that. They want to eliminate the loss of energy completely. So at these junctions, they're basically the positive side at these junctions, in order to restore the energy of the signal, this positive this positive energy, or this positive charge, is going to come back into the cell, into the axon. So it's going to go back into the axon, and it's going to restore the charge that it was once there. And that way, your charge never dissipates. Your charge just keeps getting refilled every time there's a break between a myelin sheath, right? So this charge is going to lose some energy as it goes across the myelin sheath, and then it will be recharged at this node of Ranvier. Yeah. Now, how do these pumps restore, right? Because once all of this positive energy has come back in, this gradient needs to be restored, right? So that's where these pumps will work, and they will recreate this positive gradient on the outside with the help of ATP. Okay? Whoa. Okay. And then, so recap, dendrites, they receive a signal, maybe in the form of positive ions, and the charge produced will go across. These Schwann cells will produce myelin sheath, which helps the charge not lose its energy, which is good, right? Helps the signal not lose its energy. And then these little areas without the myelin sheath will recharge the signal's energy. So what does the soma do? That's so important. Well, all cells need proteins, right? They need production. They need proteins. They need ATP, right? ATP is, we even just saw here, ATP is needed for these pumps, right? And that's what the soma does. It has your nucleus, which we've talked about before. It produces proteins, and it also has a mitochondria, which produces ATP, and it basically keeps this cell going. And I think I called it the control center before, and that's because it has the nucleus, and the nucleus is basically a bit like a control center because it controls which proteins are going where. And that's very important for any cell, just as important for a neuron. So that's the soma's job. So that pretty much wraps up how axons really can send signals with the help of myelin sheaths. By the way, keep in mind, there are a lot more different parts of the myelin sheath. I just drew like 3, but there are probably a lot more. There are definitely a lot more. But yeah, I just did that for simplicity. So that pretty much wraps up the neuron. Thank you.